China retaliates by punishing Hollywood. Hollywood, like we care. No one cares about Hollywood. No one cares about these liberals out there. So let them retaliate by punishing Hollywood. We could care less. There's nothing but vapid people out there anyway. So we gonna talk about it. We gonna play a clip from Trump. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon. That's where I talk about things that I can't talk about here. There's also a link to my Instagram and my X account, so follow me there as well. All right, so let's get into this news. Now, this comes from Hot Air, and they report that I've heard of clueless briar patch strategies, but this one really takes the cake, or a golden raspberry perhaps. Rumors have swirled the last few days that China's Xi Jinping had compiled a precise set of retaliatory actions against the U.S. in the trade war touched off by Donald Trump's tariffs. Today's report from Bloomberg doesn't produce much evidence that Beijing understands anything about American economics, and especially the American politics, about American politics. Instead, it looks more like Z is cutting off his nose to spite his U.S. propaganda face. I love that. I love that. Because they must really think we care about what Hollywood thinks. But China announced it would curb imports of Hollywood films, opening a new front in trade wars with the U.S. hours after President Donald Trump's record tariffs took effect. So we don't care. I mean, we celebrated. We celebrated when we found out that nobody watched the Disney Snow White and things like that. Hollywood has become woke. They don't care about what normal average people want anymore, and they're producing crap. So we could care less about importing Hollywood films. We don't care anything about that. But authorities vowed on Thursday to, quote, moderately reduce the number of U.S. movies allowed into the world's second largest economy. A steep floated, I'm sorry, I'm struggling reading today, y'all. a step floated earlier this week as a possible retaliation measure by two influential Chinese bloggers. Quote, the wrong action of the U.S. government to abuse tariffs on China will inevitably further reduce the domestic audience's favorability towards American films, the China Film Administration said in a statement announcing the move. And the article goes on to say, oh no, whatever will Donald Trump do without his rock solid base of support from checks notes, the limousine liberals of Hollywood, right? Xi Jinping, my dude, do you know nothing about American politics? He evidently don't, but that's a good thing. Rest assured, this retaliation has Donald Trump shaking in his boots. It's from laughter, of course, but still. So let's play the clip here.
China retaliated today by reducing the number of American films that can be shown there. What's your reaction to them now targeting cultural exports from the United States?
I think I've heard of worse things.
Oh man, I love Donald Trump. He tells it like it is. At least he tells you how you feel. He like it's worse things. I don't really care. He don't really care. Only in Beijing will anyone interpret this as leverage over Donald Trump. Hollywood's elite already hate Trump, and the feeling is more than mutual. If share prices fall for companies like Disney, Warner, and Paramount, all it means to Trump is that his political opposition will have fewer resources to array against him and his policies. Kneecapping Hollywood's power brokers practically amounts to a political side benefit in the trade war with China. Facts. Like, who came up with this, right? It's a self-defeating move in other ways, too. The U.S. entertainment industry, and not just in films, spent the past generation kissing Beijing's pucker to get access to their audience. You know how they did, we were, China used to be our enemies in movies and stuff like that. And since they tried to get into Beijing, they stopped doing that. They stopped making China like the enemy and stuff like that. But they have marginalized human rights activists such as Richard Gere to appease to the Chinese Communist Party and routinely warp their product to paint China's government in the most favorable light. That's what I was just referring to. Whether it's in silly nonsense like the 2012 uh, like 2012 and the Red Dawn remake. That's what I was thinking of, the Red Dawn, because they went and it was like it was Chinese people that they were fighting against, and then they went and changed it. Um, or higher profile efforts like The Martian and Black Hat and Disney's fawning salute to cheap Chinese labor in their credits. Hollywood reliably paints the regime in Beijing as selfless, open, and entirely uh, um, beneficent uh, in order to maintain access to the market that Xi's regime now threatens to restrict. Again, y'all, I'm struggling reading today. Y'all, I apologize. It's been a long day. Um, if this threat isn't cutting off the nose to spite the face, it's only because cutting off the mouth might seem like a better analogy. For these reasons, China retaliation against its loyal propagandists might actually be a win for true artistic honesty and maybe just for American cinema in general. If Hollywood loses access to China's markets, it might be less inclined to make little else other than mindless comic book tentpole regurgitations and shrink budgets to fit economic reality. I mean, because look how much they spent on Snow White. That's just ridiculous. Over $250 million to make a movie. That is ridiculous. But they could produce more films for less money and stop pushing Apple polishing storylines to please commissars in Beijing rather than tell stories that reflect reality rather than communist posing. I suspect that China's bluffing on this particular method of retaliation, and I would agree. I think it's a bluff. No way they would do this. I also suspect that these media companies that do business in China are rushing to make contact with the Z regime to explain just how humorous this threat is to Trump. Perhaps those same executives might reflect to their dependence on a slave labor totalitarian regime that has spent the last generation engaging in economic and cyber warfare against this country. At the moment, when we are finally pushing back in a substantive manner, don't hold your breath waiting for that moment of clarity to strike in Tinseltown, however. And I won't. I mean, the elite's gonna elite, gonna continue to push their agenda no matter what. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.